Although God used a woman to birth Beautifully Reconstructed, this ministry was never meant for women alone. Inspired by my book, No Longer Satan's Whore, this men's panel opened the door to real, transparent conversation. And if you watch part one, you saw it. We face more of the same challenges than we realize. Join us for part two, the conclusion. You don't want to miss this.
My past does not define me. Its purpose was to refine me. God, He took my broken pieces.
Tonight, Michelle will continue her conversation with her all-male panel as they discuss her powerful book, No Longer Satan's Whore. For those of you who tuned in last week, that conversation became so rich as these men talked about relationship, being yes men, being providers, but also how saying no can be healthy. So kick back and relax as that conversation continues right where it left off.
Let's live.
No is a very healthy word.
Very.
And that's one thing that we really have to be okay and just kind of look at that because people look at no as being selfish and negative.
Yes.
But no is a healthy word, man, because I look at no into being not right now.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because sometimes we do things prematurely, thinking that we're ready for a thing when we ask for a thing. And because we know that we have people in our life that's going to say yes to our requests, not knowingly, they already know you're not ready for that. It does them a disservice, and it also do you a disservice. How? They're not ready for the assignment, and now you done gave validation to something that you already knew, versus just being honest and say, you know what? I know you want to do that right now, but you're not even prepared to do this right now. What are the resources? Who you got in place to get this thing done? I'm not saying no, but I'm saying not right now. So if we learn how to put people in our lives, man, who's not gonna be a yes man or a yes woman, how we want to put it, and to be okay with saying no regardless of how you feel. Then and only then, that's another form of self-awareness, right? Because now you are okay with, even if you may not like it, you are okay with, okay, she loved me enough, he loved me enough to say no.
That's good.
You know, and so I'm with you, man. My wife the same way. She was like, no, I can't do that right now. And this is a woman that had to learn how to not be a people pleaser.
Yes.
You understand what I'm saying? Like it exhausts. It's very exhausting, man, because you neglect everything else around you. I learned something from my brother. My brother is all in when it comes down to his family. And that man would tell you, I can call him and say, hey man, I'm finna go do A, B, and C. No, I can't do that right now.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it don't care how you feel. Because he realized the importance of his marriage, putting God first. Let's go and put that in perspective. Putting God first in everything else, right? He said, "My wife want me, and me and my wife going to do A, B, and C. Oh, I got the girls. We're going to do this, that, and the third. And then maybe if we have the time, we could probably kick it." So that he taught me in a sense of, I'm not saying no to you, but my priorities is my family first.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know, and
Go ahead. You
don't
want to finish?
forget, he got something to say. Like,
Go
no,
But it's just
don't do him like that, Alan.
it's just connected with your name. Go ahead.
You know, you're a word bully.
Put it back. We're talking, bro. We're telling them how to jump in. Want to jump in? But just on that note, that we were. I believe that correct me if I'm wrong, and a lot of us, that no had been taught to us to be a negative thing that you should do for others. But what we weren't taught in our yeses it was about parameters.
Yes, that's true.
I believe that in our growing up, and I believe that everybody can probably say yes to this, is that again we were taught, put others first.
Yeah.
and do those things. Make sure that you take care of others, and then your needs will be taken care of. But what we weren't taught, there are parameters to that.
Yep.
You don't say yes so much that you even forget how to say no, and then no feels so bad. And so again, that goes back to now. My yes is really not really a yes. It's just being people pleasing and make sure that you win, because now your win means that I'm winning. And we've been taught that too. Where if you do well in another man's vineyard, you pour all into another man's vineyard, then you'll get yours. You get yours.
Yeah.
And so we will do that. We will go against what God said. God want me to do this, but I need to be over here doing this for everybody else.
So,
Yeah. Thank you so much.
No. I was gonna. I was thinking about something that Joseph was saying about being a provider, and we were talking about something that men sometimes struggle with, and we were talking about selfish. We were talking about sometimes it's important to be selfish. I think one of the things that my marriage struggled in is I am a provider, right? But thinking providing was all of my responsibility, meaning that if I provided, you should just be happy.
Right.
So providing, it became less about who I was providing for and more about how the providing made me feel.
Yeah.
Right. And then also I do a pretty good job with criticism from outside of my house. The thing I struggle with the most is criticism from my wife.
That was work.
Constructive criticism, right? And I always say this: marriage is the greatest mirror ever. Because everybody can tell you you're this, you're that. Marriage will show you who you really are, right? And I often took criticism from my wife as unappreciation. And they're not the same thing. Because I thought providing meant what else you want?
What else do you want?
And I took criticism again as unappreciation when I didn't learn, and I'm still learning this. How to put things in boxes, right? Her criticizing me about one area doesn't mean she's not satisfied or thankful for another area. Because you be like, there you go again. I can't do nothing right. How many of us
can't do nothing?
Can't do nothing right. Can't do anything right. Right. And I say this not from a place that I've mastered how to deal with this, because I haven't. Right. It's still and the Bible talks about like dying daily. We also think about that in terms of just sin, right? You gotta die in your marriage too. I never forget when I first decided to propose to my wife, one of the first questions one of my mentors asked me was, "Are you ready to die?"
Got to.
Right. And he wasn't talking about, of course, a natural death.
Absolutely.
It was a more of a spiritual death, right? And again, like just learning how to not being selfish from a negative standpoint. And when I talk about like providing things of that sort, like doing it out of love and not out of obligation. Because when you do it out of obligation, it's almost like if I do this for you, you owe me this.
You owe me this.
And I think I'm in sales, right?
Yeah.
If you know anything about sales, most of us in sales is I'm doing this because I want this in return.
Yeah.
And if you're not careful, if I'm not careful, you will take that same principle and apply it to your everyday life.
Yeah.
Man, my wife showed me, man, I know we got to move on, man. My wife said something to me years ago. She said, "Do you have an ear to hear?" I was like, what ear are you listening from? Are you listening from an ear of being offended? Or are you listening from an ear to be healed? Right? Because one thing I realized about some of our wives is that they want better from you, so they're gonna look at it from a different angle.
Right.
Because like
that's to help me.
From your point, I used to get a feeling like, girl, you better go on with that. You understand what I'm saying? I'm doing the best I can. I'm going to work every day. The kids are fed. The lights are on. You're not outside. Leave me alone. Then she said, Tavar, do you have an ear to hear? So from her perspective is, I'm here to help you when when you're down. Because when people said, man, you know, it's a 50-50. No, man, you're not gonna always be 50% all the time. You know, it may be 40 or you know, whatever. But at the end of the day, having that person in your life that's going to speak life, but also be okay with, it's gonna hurt your feelings for a minute.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're gonna get it because I got you. And so I just really want to, you know, encourage you, man. You know, what ear are you listening from? Are you listening from an ear of being criticized in order to feel like you're being broken down? Or are you listening from an ear of, nah, babe, I'm in this thing with you? You understand what I'm saying? That's so, good. You know, I just thought maybe I'd share that, man.
That's good.
Because it helped me.
That's good.
And it's one of those things, it's a reflective thing. Because my wife, she'll say something, you know, she'll say, or, you know, well, you should have done it this way, you should have done such and such. I'm like, well, you know, I think I did pretty good. I did this way, and this is what happened. This is what's going on. And then I sit and I play it back and go, okay, well, she got a point there, you know, and she's the one, you know, she'll end up cooking and fix the plate and then come and eat. I'm like, come eat, man. I feel like eating.
Oh, right. Yeah. Hey, home.
But I better come on in and eat. And
lost that appetite.
And like, you know, it's hard to say. You
Pride and stomach broken up
point every
time.
You got a point right there. You know, I thought about what you said, and that make a lot of sense. That makes sense. But you know, going back to, I think we were. I don't know about the Darby guys, because I know your father, but a certain amount of training that we have to deconstruct that we grew up on. As you said about being a provider, I had a minister in the pulpit. And he said, he was doing a counseling session, and he said, is your lights on? And she said, yes. So you got food? Yes. All your bills paid? Yes. You ain't outdoors? Yes. What's the problem? He didn't even understand that it was because he was going out of all the provisions, but not being there. And so, you know, a lot of times we were raised on that.
Yeah.
You know, raised on not being a failure, not understanding that, you know, we learn a lot from failure. But raised up on providing. As long as you do that, then everything else.
It's not enough though, man.
You ain't gotta worry about that. Yeah.
I guess I know what Joseph said something about providing. One thing my son Jeff taught me, you can provide all you want to. You can get more money.
You better talk about it, man.
But you can't get time back.
Yeah.
That part.
And so all that time when my son died, I didn't think about the money. All I thought about the times all the stuff we did. I was there. See, we think about, I provide for my family, I make sure they got food, I make sure this. Be there.
Yeah.
You could provide all you want to, but if you ain't physically, you could be physically in the house, but you still ain't there.
And they got the most joy out of being there. And it ain't necessarily, you know, I hear some people say, I'm at everything, every time they there, I'm there. I know I can't be there every time, but they have so much joy. My wife, she don't normal be, and it changed. The kids, they having a meet or something like you said, and they just see you up there, and it's a total different thing. That's the being there.
I'm gonna tell you the greatest calling my sons ever gave me. He said, I don't care what it is, my dad gonna show up to my game. That's the greatest compliment he ever gave me.
Yeah.
It wasn't nothing what I bought for him or what I gave him. That's the greatest compliment he gave me. He said, I don't care what my daddy got to do. My daddy gonna show up to my game.
Yeah.
And that's important. That's a big deal because I noticed when my son were playing football, I noticed there was a lot of kids out there. The father was showing up, not one time.
But you know what though, man? Once I was able to put away all my vices, it made me more aware. When I got away from the very thing that I thought was going to give me comfort, it allowed me to be a better father. to be more present, physically and mentally. And then it made me see my wife for who she is. And it allowed me to say, baby, you are more than enough for me. When I put down the vice, when I put down the pornography, when I put down alcoholism, when I put down everybody else,
Yeah, you more time.
you understand? It gave me so much more time, man. And you know what's crazy, man? I felt so much lighter. You get what I'm saying? And so now that time, my kids, they remember making pizza with me.
Yeah, see,
They
little
remember
stuff
little
like
small
that. Yeah,
things.
stuff
So
like
you
that.
feel
Yeah,
that
yeah.
because I'm making this bread.
Bread.
That's what it is. No, man. It's man, look, it's nothing against mothers, but it's just something about seeing your dad in the stands. It's something about seeing your dad show up. It's just something about seeing that man, you know what I'm saying, that's gonna speak life. But going back to this book, man, putting down that very thing that's a stronghold, it gives, first of all, it gives God glory, and then his glory just trickle down and everything else. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I'm not for the be saying so. I'm sorry.
I know that. I do want to touch on another area of the book, and it's because even when we talk about everything that we've discussed, we know that everything has a what? A root. There's a reason why we go through this journey the way that we do.
Yes.
And so I'm just going to read a little bit and then I'm going to get your perspectives. Train to Comply is chapter 1. Feeling content in my grandmother's bed is where he often found me. He frequently awakened me with the feel of his intrusive hand nuzzled on my private area. I cannot confirm the exact age at which it began, but the visions that play back in my mind show me that I was about the age of 3. He stripped me of every fiber of my innocence with every occurrence. Later, my body became trained to crave these moments, so there was no resistance. There was no need for him to say, be quiet, or this is our secret. What I thought or felt about the situation became obsolete since this was now a learned behavior. And he conditioned me to be available to satisfy his sexual urges. As morbid as it sounds, he had transformed from an endearing uncle to a probing molester. Yet I thought of him as my lover, although at that time I honestly did not understand what that meant. I became a child with a sexual appetite of an adult, and he treated me like one. It became my normality. And so, when we talk about a root of things, you know, a lot of my journey came from what had happened to me as a child. Me being a people pleaser, because I was taught to please him. I was taught not to say no because I didn't really have an option to say no because of the way that the abuse started at such an early age. I was already trained.
Yeah.
And so the fear of disappointing, you know, although this had nothing to do with my intentions or my actions, I was afraid of telling my family because I didn't want them to be disappointed in me and I didn't do anything wrong. So there are so many things that happen because of an action of another individual, but that was the root. So let's dig in and let's talk about some of the roots as to why we do what we do or what we have done.
Well, I think some of us may be able to trace it to roots, but I think we're all a conglomerate of all of our life experiences, right? And some things we may be able to attach to a certain experience, and there's some things we don't know. I mean, think about, especially in the social media age, right?
Yes.
You know, the images, the thing we see, the thing we hear, all of that, like, or the people we saw as mentors or we looked up to when we were younger, right? We are being taught we've been taught since we were out the womb.
Yes.
Even in the womb.
Yes.
We were already being taught and conditioned, right? But I think if you can trace things back to the root, I think you understand yourself a little bit better.
Yeah.
And I think we blame ourselves. If you don't get back to that root, you will find yourself blaming yourself for things you had really no really no real control over.
Yeah.
But in that, when you're trying to go back to the root, sometimes it's not easy to find, which is why it's good. One, that's why therapy is so good.
Yeah.
If you don't do that, have someone that you can talk to.
Yeah.
Because again, then when you begin to open up, and that's what I know as men, we want to talk. Don't cry.
Yes.
You don't talk about no problems. You just handle it.
Deal with it.
You internalize feelings. You again, if you hurt, don't show you hurt. Well, whatever went on at the job, fine. You always fine. How you doing? I'm good. I'm fine. And so we've compacted so much inside of us that we don't even know how to find the root until you start talking in maybe a forum like this or off camera, and you find someone and you just talking and go, because that's what therapy actually does. It takes you back until you find what actually that first thing was and why we act like we act. Because a lot of stuff we don't even know why we do it.
Yeah, but you know what though, man? First, you have to ask yourself the question when it comes down to healing. When you deal with the roots, the first question that you have to ask yourself: are you willing to deal with the pain? You see what I'm saying? Because I think what happens is throughout our life we patchwork, we patch up, we patch, and then when we blow up, that's where the infection comes, right? And it begins to smell. It began to look discolored or whatever. The cool thing about healing is that you got to dig in order to get to the root.
Right.
And you made the statement about trying to find it. In order to find it, you have to dig and to be willing to fight through it, because either way it goes, you still dealing with pain on both ends. Right? You're dealing with pain because you're constantly reliving this thing over and over again. How? By the way, the relationship that you're in. Because you end up finding the same person over and over again. Your life keep on going through the same thing. Or it's a cycle until now it's time for you to go to a therapist. And then he or she is making you get to the root cause of the problem. What that's going to do is going to bring up some painful memories that's going to trigger some things, but it's also going to help the thing, right? So the closest thing, one thing I've learned, if I wanted to be healed, I got to be able to dig and get to the root of it and be able to pluck it out. I like actually look at this show, the Pimple Popper, and she would go in, she wouldn't just get what's on the surface. She went in and dug up what was making the problem. And so we have to be able to dig it up, then heal, right? But in the digging up, man, it's number one, okay, let me forgive myself and forgive the person, because the person that did the molest may be dead. So you may have to, it's going to take that work. The work is going through the pain and then heal from the pain. It don't mean you're going to forget, because now it was something that we were talking about outside, where that's when testimony comes in.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying? And the thing is that once you done dug up the root cause, heal from it, now you can help somebody else. But as long as you still wallowing in the mess and using that right there for everything that you deal with, you would never heal.
Well,
You would never heal.
well, it's important to get to the root cause, because if you don't get to the root cause, you're going to turn, like you said, pornography. You're going to turn to drugs. You're going to turn to alcohol. And then if you ain't careful, you can turn to suicide.
Yes.
And we don't talk about that a lot.
Yeah,
You know,
thought of you.
people hear every day somebody kill themselves. Say, have you ever just wondered, how did they get to that point?
Yeah. It was a
They
process.
didn't wake. They just wake up one day and say, okay, I'm gonna kill myself today. It was steps to that. It was something happened. Something happened, and they kept saying, I'm gonna use alcohol. I'm gonna use this. I'm gonna use that, and it didn't satisfy it. So now they got to the point and say, okay, I'm gonna take my life because I don't care. I don't love myself. So people don't love me. So why should I be here? And so that's why it's important to get to that root cause of why we here. How did we get here?
Deal with
And
that
don't be ashamed to talk about things.
Right.
But like I said, that's why I love this right here, is because talk. We don't know what people going through. They put on, people had on masks for a long time, way before COVID.
Yeah. Man, you said something.
You said something.
I mean, they hide. They this way with this person. Then they get around this person. Cause I was like this. I was a people person.
Mm-hmm.
I was around this with this person like this, and then when I got around this person, I was just acting this way.
Yeah.
Then I got around this person, I was like,
Yeah.
you gonna go crazy.
Right.
Yeah.
Because you can't please everybody. And that's why I learned don't try to please everybody.
Yeah.
All person you need to be trying to please is God.
That's it. That's it.
And it's
And sometimes it's multiple things
Yeah.
that have occurred. You know, my one of the challenges that I faced with my father not being in the home. And so then that, led me to wanting the affection of other men, as well as basically the enemy was compiling things. Let's just add on some more things. So yeah. So I do want Asaph and Joseph, do you have anything to chime in?
Yes, ma'am, for sure. I think you talked about like your father not being pregnant. And it like right when you said it, like a thought popped in my head. Sometimes a person's actions ends up being our foundation. And that's the unfortunate thing. Sometimes, if our mom or our dad or our grandparents did something, sometimes that's our starting place. And that speaks to like, trauma and generational curses.
Yeah.
And then I also think even like looking at it a little like on the other side of it, I also think that we threw away around like the words of like crying and getting emotional. I really do think that there's been like overall like this misinformation or like this miseducation of like the words and these expressions and how we express ourselves through these words and expressions.
Yeah.
And like there's this idea of like good and bad. I think Tavor said it earlier, and I love that he said that he said that no is not, we've been taught that no is a negative thing. And that's a fact. And I think when we start to bring all of that into perspective, you start to realize there's a lot of things in good that can be or there's a lot of things in good that we perceive as good that are actually bad, and there are a lot of things that we perceive as bad that are actually good.
Yeah.
And I think if we start to separate the wheat from the tare, when it comes down to that analogy right there, I think we can start to be on more of a straightforward path, or maybe not straightforward. Paths and journeys are very unpredictable at times, but I think we can start to be on a path to where we start to do the work that requires ourselves to actually sit in front of ourselves and start to heal. And we can process it differently. That way we're not just thinking that there's just one path to healing. And I think sometimes, speaking to the suicide thing, I think people that are struggling with suicide, I think sometimes they are victims to this idea that we put on them in regards to this idea that there's one path to healing, or it has to live like this, or just turn to God. Not saying God can't fix all. We know God can fix all, but who's to say that that person that unfortunately ended up committing suicide did not turn to God? We don't know what that looks like in regards to their relationship, in regards to their communication, in regards to their conversations with God. We don't really know what that looks like. So I think if we can start to work backwards and actually like figure out why our root causes are the way that they are, why they are what they are, I think we can start to undo some of this trauma and undo some of this, like I said, misinformation and miseducation. So
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Joseph?
I definitely agree with everybody. I think another thing is once you do the work, making sure that it's not because I've noticed this from a lot of people, not continuing to what's the word? Use it as a crutch.
Man.
Because you pretty much undoing everything that you work for, or that you was working on. We continue to use that as a crutch. Not saying that we don't fall short and stuff like that, but I think I had a conversation with Asaph or or one of us. And I was just like, we can no longer blame our parents for our upbringing. Like, yes, it happened. We addressed it.
Yeah.
It made us to who we are now. The things that we're doing now, like, that's on us. Like, we have to work on that.
Just
Like, we already know we already found the root cause of, like, why we respond to certain things or whatever. Now it's on us to do the work. And I like I said, I noticed that from a lot of people now. Like, they're like, oh yeah, I'm going to therapy, but then as soon as something happened, well, you don't know what happened. It's like,
Yeah.
are you doing the work, or are you just doing it because it's trendy?
Making this,
That's good right there.
And I like I said, that's something that I noticed, but and also just making sure you're doing the work, because what you don't fix and what you don't heal is going to trickle down to your kids.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
So
He must have been out there with us when
He
we were
was.
talking.
Yeah, I was.
Screen. Where'd he go?
I said, one of the things that I've adopted over the my life's journey is that I was victimized, but I'm not a victim. I'm a victor through Christ.
Yeah.
And so once you have to make a decision, it all starts with a decision to make sure that are you going to stay stuck or are you going to thrive? And so everyone here has made that decision that we're going to thrive.
That's right.
And so when I tell you that, I believe that we can go on for another hour because this conversation is so good. However, our time has ended. I am so saddened.
It was good.
It always happens with us.
I could just see everyone's faces like there's so much more we could tap into. And so I just want to thank you all again for joining me on today. This was very insightful. It was amazing for me to sit as a woman to hear a man's point of view on some of the things that I think of as a woman and a wife, and even as a child, even being an adult child. So I appreciate every one of you. Of course, all of your information, you just gave your names, but these men are doing some phenomenal things in the kingdom. So their information is going to be available. So make sure you follow them. Make sure you're following what they're doing, because they're going to absolutely bless you with the things that they have going on as they thrive in their purpose. So once again, thank you all for joining me, and thank you for joining Beautifully Reconstructed. Remember, I am not, you are not, we are not inadequate. We are beautifully reconstructed. Until next time.
To transform and renew me now, beautifully reconstructed. Beautifully reconstructed. I'm beautifully reconstructed. Beautifully reconstructed.